Moment. Hello everyone and welcome to the IEP Live Learn Lunch. We're really excited to have you all join us here today for what is our 47th Live Learn Lunch event that we have hosted. Today we are joined by our colleague, our partners, our corporate affiliate partners from RNIB, who are going to be taking us through an introduction on how to work with job seekers who have sight loss. So it's going to be a fantastic session. I'm going to hand you straight over to them and they're going to talk to us about today's presentation. So welcome, Andy and Heather, and over to you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Helen. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I got kind of managed to get myself locked out a few minutes ago, so hopefully I'll be here long enough to at least get a little bit in here. So I think we're just putting up our first slide. Yes, we are. So first of all, everybody, welcome to RNIB. For anyone who doesn't know, that stands for the Royal National Institute of Blind People. And today, what we're hoping to do is to raise a little bit of awareness of sight loss and also, support participants today to be a bit more knowledgeable and confident in working with job seekers and people generally with sight loss. So we expect the presentation today to last about 45 minutes, and we've got a couple of short video clips to include in that, but they are quite short, so not too bad. And we'll also be asking you some questions as we go through and getting your ideas and your thoughts on things, if that's okay. So so if we could move on to the next slide, please, Helen. So this is just a little bit about our services and what we do. So we're bigger than just our employment team, which we'll talk about shortly. We have services for lots of different people, different age groups and the like. So some of the things that we have are confidence building courses. I think they're called Living Well with Sight Loss, and that's often a crucial thing for somebody who's perhaps recently been given a diagnosis that's quite life-shattering, really, isn't it? So confidence building interventions, counselling, things like that. We also have welfare rights services to help people, applying for or having if they're having difficulties around what benefits that they might be entitled to. We have what's known as our ECLO service, so that's eye clinic liaison officers, and they are generally based in hospitals and eye clinics all around the UK, and they can sometimes, for many people, are the first port of call following a clinical diagnosis. We have children and families services, who they sort of seem to do lots of fun things, and a great support for the families of children with sight loss. We have a learning disability team, and I think a lot of their work is around sort of like raising awareness with clinicians, with opticians and the like, that people with learning difficulties can often be much more likely to have a sight condition than the rest of the population. So there's a big sort of research and training side to that team. We have a legal rights service, which is quite a small team, but they're there to advise on around legislation such as the Equality Act, and to help people understand their rights in employment, but also in service provision and other things. And we also have our Connect community, which is run by the people for the people. So it's really about involving our customers in what we do, and they have sort of like social media, lots of groups and things that have been run obviously remotely at the moment, but it is very much about involving people in what we do. And then of course we have the employment team, which is where my colleague Andy and I work. So all of these services can be accessed through our sight loss advice team and through our helpline service, which we'll speak about a little bit later. So Helen, if we could move on a bit, thank you. So who are our customers? So this is really just about who would use our services. So some people will use our different parts of our organisation, some from very young age, children's services. Some will you know, perhaps later in life. So that may be an older person developing a sight problem. Or, you know, in the case of the employment team, somebody could come along, just a specific thing that they need some support with, and then move away from the service. So that's a sort of introduction to who might come to RNIB. So I think, yep, we're just catching up on the slides here. So some with us from a young age, some later in lives, and many of our customers are older people. So I think as we move on to our next slide, I'm going to let Andy speak for a little while here. So thanks,
okay.
Andy.
Okay, hi everyone. RNIB's approach to employment has been changed over the years, but our current method includes our entire sight loss advice service. So if our starting point is if anyone contacts our helpline by email, by phone, or by web message, they will get quite quickly to a sight loss advisor. And we're finding that our sight loss advisors are dealing with around about half of the inquiries that come in. So if it's something that they can answer instantly, that's what they aim to do. Not every, sorry, I should have said that the sight loss advice team are dealing with hundreds of phone calls every day. So that way we can reach or be there for a lot of people. Sometimes though you can't answer an employment question easily, and for that reason we have a specialist team of advisors. You will be glad to know we're not all based in Glasgow. We are spread out across the UK, and we actually have 11 advisors who are split into what we call networks, geographical areas across the countries. Just to get a picture of the kind of volume, there are 11 specialist advisors there, and they're dealing with the more complex and less straightforward inquiries that need a bit of input. So just from April to December of last year, we worked directly with around 800 people. These are people that we were trying to keep in jobs. We worked directly with around 250 employment professionals, where people like yourselves who are working with customers that need a bit of advice. And we've rolled out a programme of e-learning for employment professionals, which is now going well over 1,000 people have used that e-learning, and we'll come back to that later on. And on top of that, our team are signposting or advising people who are looking for jobs so that they can find a service locally for them. So two sides to the team. Yes, of course, we're working with people working age, whatever that is at the moment. We can be dealing with people who have always had sight loss from birth, or others where it develops over time. But that is the way we're structured. Our sight loss advice team is dealing with volumes of inquiries, and our specialist advisors are working one-to-one with people that need some help. And I think at this point, I'll pass you back over to Heather.
Yeah. Okay, so if we can move on to the start of our next slide, please, Helen, that would be smashing. So as Andy said, the sight loss advice team are dealing with hundreds of calls every day. So, you know, a proportion of those are going to be employment customers. And I think at this point, we just kind of want to involve everybody else a little bit. So it's not just Andy and I talking, and have a think about, you know, what an employment customer of RNIB might look like. So here, I suppose what I'm asking you is, you know, perhaps think of somebody that you know, or somebody that you've seen, you know, out and about, who you're like, okay, that person's blind. So what were the sort of like signs or giveaways, you know, that person couldn't see? So really sort of, you know, have a think about what an employment customer might look like. And I wonder if perhaps, Helen, could we, you know, look at people maybe wanting to put a comment on chat, some of the things that they might associate with a blind person. Would that be okay?
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And so Helen's going to kind of let us, hear what's here. So I see somebody's putting here that their cane is a big giveaway. Yep, that's exactly the type of thing that we're looking here. So so thank you for commenting there. Are we getting any other? Yeah.
We have an assistance animal.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's got a dog with them, we've got a couple of people have said Sylvia, Christine, Two Christines have all said the dogs. Kim, as she said, is registered blind, and her cane is a big giveaway for people.
Yeah.
Andy's asking us a question there. He's popped one on with a question mark. So dark glasses,
Yeah.
what do we think? So someone else, Kim said dark shield glasses as well.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts from anyone? It can be tricky. So Sylvia's saying someone who will not look at you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think this can be quite a difficult question because, you know, we're asking people to give stereotypical things, which we all have it in our head that we shouldn't, you know, stereotype, whereas we're asking you just now to do that. You know, what might make you think, yeah, this person is blind. So yeah, we've had some good answers there. So okay, so could we perhaps move on to introducing our little animated character who we have given this person a name. So this is Alex, and so yeah, so Alex, we have some add-ons that are going to float in here, and I think they are the things that people mentioned. You know, that we have the dark glasses, we have a cane here, a white cane, and we have the assistance dog or guide dog. So yeah, these are the kind of things that that, you know, the various people that contributed onto the chat there said, yeah, these are the things that might make you think, yes, that person I've seen is blind. So, okay, so I'm going to hand over to Andy, who's going to talk a little bit more about, you know, RNIB customers. What we've talked about, what they might look like. So he's now going to speak a little bit about some more of the facts around these types of things. So, thanks, Andy.
Okay, this is interactive time for you again. So our first question is, how many people are there in the UK who are blind or partially sighted? And we should have a poll here for you to respond to. So let's see what you think the answer to this one is. Okay, and we're starting to get some answers coming in now.
Yeah.
Of course, this is a very difficult question because there isn't one centralised measure of who's blind, partially sighted, has sight loss, or who might even call themselves visually impaired. There are quite a lot of different ways of measuring this.
Yeah.
Right,
and,
so I think we've probably got all the answers we're going to get. So
okay, and interestingly enough, we think the correct answer to this one is 2 million people in the UK. So around 30% got that right. Again, it is a very difficult one to measure, but certainly we're working on the assumption that we have around 2 million people. Admittedly, some of them will be older people, and that might explain why some people got a higher score on that one, because a lot of people lose their sight in older age. But yeah, the figure we work on there is 2 million. So thank you for trying that.
Okay.
Do we move on to the next one now? Okay, so now we have what percentage of blind people see either nothing at all or only darkness and light? If you'd like to have a go at answering this one for us.
This reminds me a little bit like Ask the Audience and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So,
yeah. I was thinking Family Fortunes, but then I might just be a bit older than you, Heather.
I think that's what it is. So, and Helen, you won't remember that at all.
oh, I do. I remember when Bob Monkhouse presented Family Fortunes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, he was one of my favourites when I was little, the Golden Shot. So I do remember that.
Okay, so again, I think we've got all our answers in here now, so I'll just share them for you.
Okay, the correct answer we've got to this one is only 4% of blind people see either nothing at all or only darkness and light. So what we can take from that is a lot of blind people will have some sight, most of them. And the key for us is how useful that sight is. So thank you for that one. And I think we have a third slide coming up as well. Sorry, a third poll. Okay, let's have a go at this one. So what percentage of registered blind or partially sighted people have a guide dog? Have a go at that one. And I should say that maybe that phrase registered blind or partially sighted is slightly old now, because we now use a system where people are certified sight impaired or severely sight impaired. So never mind the technology. But what percentage do you think of people who are registered to have a guide dog?
Well, this is an interesting one. They were a bit slower this time with the answers, which it makes us seems a bit trickier. I think we've had them all in now, though, so I'll share the results with you.
Okay.
Okay, this is a difficult question. You're right, Helen. The correct answer we think is 1%, which is generally lower than most people expect. And that can be for lots of different reasons. For example, it's quite a visual thing, having the use of a guide dog, and it kind of stands out. But yeah, we've estimated it's around about 1%. Okay, that's our polls finished for now. So I think at this point I should hand back to Heather.
Thank you, Andy. And I think what we wanted to show with these questions was that some of those stereotypical things we thought about that Alex, our character, had may not actually apply. Not many people have a guide dog. I think somebody put something in chat to say that you know, if they're with a family member, you may not actually realise that they themselves are blind. So there's I think if we can quickly pop up our next slide, please, Helen. It really just oh yep, just onto our little character again.
I just moved the sharing poll results out of the way.
Yeah, okay. So I think there's before this slide, there's one before it, I think. And it might be that the character's behind. Am I not seeing it because he's behind?
Yep, he's here now, Heather.
Okay, so we have Alex again, only this time he doesn't have his dark glasses or his guide dog or his long cane, which is really, as we've seen in these questions, perhaps, you know, a blind or partially sighted person might not actually look a lot different from anybody else, as Alex does here. Okay, so if we could move on to our next slide, please, Helen. That's it. So we're here we'll be looking at, so, you know, what actually is sight loss? And there's many different eye conditions, and people may have heard of some of these. So I think we have a poll here, do we, Helen? I might be wrong.
Okay, let me just check for you.
If not, we can, you know, offer answers in chat. I've got poll in my notes, but that might not be right.
Okay.
And it's about do you know the
most common cause? Yes,
most common cause of sight loss in the UK.
Here we go.
So yeah, so do you know the most common cause of sight loss in the UK today? And we have again four answers to see what people come up with. So we're getting quite
a few answers in there. Yep.
That's it. Yeah. Which again is good, because if we all went for one and it was right or wrong.
It's quite, oh, we've had one now. I was going to say it's quite interesting that no one's selected up until that point, right? Retinitis pigmentosa, and I wondered if it was because none of us knew what it was. But then somebody picked it.
Yeah, but that's the thing, you know, sometimes we hear things and we may not know a particular condition, but, you know, one has the word diabetic in it, so we're all familiar with, you know, the term diabetes. So and that seems to be the chosen you know, the most people have selected that one. So the answer actually isn't diabetic retinopathy. The answer is macular degeneration, and that's the most common cause of sight loss in the UK today. And sometimes we, if we have heard of this condition, we tend to associate it with older people. There's an age-related macular degeneration, but it's actually the leading cause of sight loss for people of working age as well. So there are like juvenile versions of macular degeneration as well. So, so thank you everyone for that. Could we move on to the next slide, please?
Could I just chip in there, Heather, to say that Kim has shared with us that she has retinitis pigmentosa. So thanks for sharing that, Kim. And it's worth pointing out that Heather's just about to kind of do some simulations, some sight loss, that they're not going to be 100% accurate. They're only meant to just give you a slight idea of what things may look like. Everyone will be different. Sorry,
No, thank you for that. I hadn't seen that. So, and yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, with slides, when you're trying to show what something might be like, it is, as Andy says, it is only maybe how it might be for some people. And some eye conditions, you know, there will be, it'll affect this part of the vision, but someone's experience can be very, very different, and there's a lot of factors come into that. So with macular degeneration, we have slides here with a small child, and the picture on the left is sort of like the early stages of macular degeneration, whereas the picture over to the right is perhaps a bit more advanced, and it, you know, the condition can become much more advanced than this. So you'll see here that what generally happens with MD is someone will start to lose the central part of their vision. And that obviously makes it hard to see, you know, to see people's faces, to make out features. And obviously things like reading is going to become more difficult, because that's what we use our central vision for these detailed things. And as I said, macular degeneration is often associated with older people, but it's also the most common cause of sight loss in the UK today for working age people too. So if we could move on to the next slide, please, Helen. Okay, so this is cataracts, which probably most people have heard of. And I think cataracts nowadays, because, you know, we probably know people who've had surgery, and it's very straightforward. It's generally done as day surgery, no need to stay in hospital and things. So a lot of people don't really, you know, consider this now to be an eye condition as such, because it is such a common part of everyday, well, sort of, you know, growing older really, and difficulties in our eyes. So very, very common, easily treated with surgery, although surgery isn't always possible, and that can be because there's other eye conditions present as well. So surgeons would make that choice about whether levels of risk relating to other things might outweigh the benefits, or just the risk factors are just too high. So yeah, cataracts tend to, you know, people can become quite light sensitive because they scatter the light. And as you see in these same photographs of the small child, there's light is really causing a problem and making it quite cloudy and difficult to see. So that's what someone might experience with cataracts. Okay. And our next slide, so this one is something like what diabetic retinopathy might look like. And again, we have the pictures of the small child, early stage and more advanced. So diabetic retinopathy can cause bleeds within the eye, and this is what creates these so-called blind patches. And as we'll see in the picture on the right, it can be quite severe and create lots of problems across the full field of vision, and sadly can become worse than this as well. So, so yeah, that's diabetic retinopathy. And then the last condition that we're going to show today is glaucoma. And again, pictures early stage and later. So glaucoma causes severe loss of our peripheral vision, so our vision roundabout. So sometimes people with glaucoma, you know, their central vision can be perfect. So you could have somebody, you know, reading a newspaper and think, well, how can they be doing that, you know, if they're blind? So it's really around you know, the effect on the other parts of their vision. So sometimes people with glaucoma, because you know, the peripheral vision is restricted in such a way, you can imagine it would be quite difficult to get around. You might not notice, you know, things overhanging, flights of stairs, you know, if it's uneven surfaces, if you've only got this smaller part of your vision. So it can be quite difficult to get around safely. It can be treated if it's detected early. So the important thing is, you know, make sure you go for regular eye health checks, you know, just with your optician, and they can pick up on these things. And hopefully people do go for eye health checkups, but those who do, you know, yeah, I see this is what RP is like. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Kim. You're absolutely right. Thanks for sharing that. So you know, and if you're in the optician and they do a little kind of puffer test and blow a little puff of air into your eye, this is what they're looking at, is you know, to see if there's any indication of early onset of glaucoma, and that's about measuring the pressure in somebody's eye. So as I say, they can detect this and they can stop it from getting any worse with drops, so with treatment. Problem is, damage can't be undone, but you can stop it from actually getting any worse. So the key thing is here, please do have your eye health checks done. It's not just to see if you need glasses. It really is to, you know, prevent conditions such as this affecting your eyesight. And an RNIB statistic that we work to is that 50% of sight loss is avoidable. So that's quite a, you know, if you don't take anything else away from today, please take that with you. And if you don't already see an optician, you know, please do. It's a really important thing to do. So, yep. So thank you. That's some of the common eye conditions, and I'll hand over back over to Andy now. Thanks.
Okay, so that's been useful to get an idea of the kind of effects that different eye conditions have, particularly the more common ones in the UK. So what I took from that was things like, well, we're still looking at tunnel vision, for example, where the peripheral vision is gone, whereas other people it's their distance vision is affected, or it could be central vision that's affected. Things like light sensitivity are also really important. Ability to perceive depth is quite a big issue depending on different eye conditions. But I thought maybe I could ask a question, and if anyone could put forward their ideas in the chat about, this is all very medical, but what are the societal barriers that will now be faced if you had one of those eye conditions? Has anyone got any thoughts on what practically that would mean to you? Welcome any ideas in chat, but if you don't have any ideas, that's okay. Some of the obvious ones for me is if someone's central vision is affected, then that is going to make it difficult to read. And also to look at computer screens, for example. And Sylvia has suggested changing a job and adaptations that could be involved. Yep. Christine's has mentioned, yep, that's going to affect independence. So actually just going out on your own or using public transport. Yep, a couple of big societal barriers there that make quite a difference. And yeah, Robert has mentioned that virtual work can be a challenge. Yeah, so many people have had the right adaptations at work, and suddenly they're working from home and nothing seems to work right. New technology, new systems, and new adaptations needed. So let me just see. I saw another one coming through there. Yep, Kim has mentioned, for example, where the edge of the curb is. Unfortunately, not all curbs are marked. Very easy to walk into things and bump over. Yep. Cooking, yeah, absolutely. It can be a challenge just to get the measurements right. Being able to stream live music, yep. Yeah, absolutely, because technology in itself becomes a barrier if your sight is deteriorated. And Syed has pointed out, yep, it could affect confidence. It's almost guaranteed to when someone goes through a significant change like that. Mental health, of course, yeah. Any change in health or suddenly being faced by new barriers in the world, yeah, could have an adverse effect on people as well. So yeah, bear in mind as well, oh, COVID, yeah, of course, yeah, the issues that have been around COVID, things like shopping, being guided by someone, moving around, yep, that's had an adverse impact. Another thing to bear in mind is, excuse me, Kerry's also popped in social anxiety there, which, yeah, I can, is fully understandable. So another thing to bear in mind is, it's all very clear cut in the slides that Heather just presented, but some people will potentially have more than one condition, and that could complicate things even further for everyone. So yeah, a lot of things to take into account there, and as well as the medical changes, there are lots of physical changes in the world as well. And it's worth, on a very depressing note, it is also worth pointing out for us that for all of us, our vision will change as we get older, which is another effect on all the things we're talking about here. I think as we move on to the next slide, Heather, we'll
Yeah.
take over.
Okay, so on this slide, so this is where I'm going to talk briefly about the aging process, which Andy knows all about. So Helen and I aren't quite that old yet. So yeah, the aging process and vision. As Andy said, there are going to be changes within our eyes. That it's just natural deterioration, the same as the rest of our bodies, I'm afraid. And on this slide, we have a picture of a guy who's got incredibly long arms, and he's holding, I think it's a book, and using binoculars to see it. So it's a bit of a sort of tongue-in-cheek picture. But what this shows is something called presbyopia. And this is when we can't focus so well on nearby objects. So we may not have an eye condition as such, it's just part of the aging process. So we start to hold books and newspapers at arm's length so that we can read them more clearly. And this is perfectly normal, kind of happens to everybody, and it's just part of the aging process. But it is very annoying, and there's lots of simple ways that we can help, ideas we can suggest. So people, feel they can manage for a while, and we all see people holding something at arm's length trying to focus, but eventually they are going to need reading glasses to read, and it's perfectly normal thing to be happening. And again, for fear of sounding like a broken record, having regular eye health checkups and also telling your doctor about any symptoms you have or concerns with your eyes or your vision, that can help keep your eyes healthy for your lifetime. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next slide, please, Helen, which is it's a little bit about the realities of everyday stuff to do with sight loss. And we're going to talk a little bit about communication and etiquette. So we have a slide here that says, is it okay to ask? So I'd like to ask people, for ideas on chat, things that think, is it okay to say this? Is it okay to say that? Does anyone have any thoughts, or some of our participants today might want to mention, if somebody's asked them something and felt awkward or uncomfortable asking them about. So anything that you might be unsure about saying. So we got, yes, it's okay to ask. I would rather someone ask than stare at me. I couldn't have put that better. Thank you so much for that, Kim. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do we have, sometimes we have situations where people say they don't want to ask if somebody saw the match last night, have you watched EastEnders recently? These types of things.
I think that's a really good point there, Heather. I think often the language, I know the sort of language I use, I can see what you mean, or silly little things like that slip into your speech patterns. And I know I've been in situations where I've used some of that language and then I felt a little bit awkward. And like I should apologize. And then if you do, it feels even more awkward because you feel then like you're making a big deal out of something which you really shouldn't. So I think, yeah.
That's it. Yep, absolutely. And so Kim has said that my mother will regularly say, watch where you're walking. No, I cannot. Haha. Yep. So that's good.
I think as well, it can be difficult to know, like you say, what it is okay to ask. So is the best approach to say, I've not worked with someone before. I know I spoke to you both before this session where I worked on a graduate program, and I had one of the graduates on the program had a sight loss condition, and we got all the equipment for her, and we had that all in place, but I found it quite difficult at first to sort of say, do you need extra support? Do I need to be doing more with you? Because I didn't want her to feel like I was overcompensating or I doubted her ability. She'd earned her place on the program, but sometimes there was that elephant in the room that I wasn't sure I was dealing with it in the right way, because I didn't want to upset her or cause offense, but actually I was probably disadvantaging her by not having that conversation early on.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, and I wonder, Andy, that I've seen there's a couple of things came up on the chat, but I didn't catch them, and I'm not sure how to get them. Can you?
Yeah, there's some good points there. Yeah, someone said it depends. I think if it's a family member, you forget they're blind, and I think that's really where we want to be. At the same time, we want to try and balance it out so that people get the support they need. Someone else has said that somebody said white stick and was corrected because it was a long cane. Yeah, we don't, I suppose we haven't really got time to go into all the different mobility aids, but yeah, a long cane is a name given to a particular kind of cane, but there are also smaller symbol canes, there are guide canes, there are, people are going to call them white sticks, so there isn't really a right answer to that one. And then another comment is that getting the language right is always a worry. Yeah, do you use the word partially sighted or blinds? Yeah, there's always a worry you'll get it wrong, and there isn't a right answer to that. And all the time I've worked in RNIB, we've never agreed on the right phrase to use at the moment we talk about people with sight loss. But some people would be offended by that. You can't really get it right. And someone has said it's better to ask questions rather than presume and guess what someone needs. And then we've got another comment on, we'd like to learn more about the types of words that we can use. So yeah, there's certainly some discussion in there.
Yep.
Heather, have you got some examples you can share with us?
Sorry?
Heather, have you got some examples you can
I
share
have,
with us?
yes. We've got another slide coming up that hopefully it will work. There's little parts to add. So yeah, did you watch the match last night? And have you seen the new James Bond film? Well, none of us have at the moment, but we'll excuse that. And here we are, like, oh my goodness, did you see that? And see you later. And I think the key to this is, you know, to use these terms. I think if you say to someone, my goodness, did you see that? It might be helpful to then, if they need you to explain what it is you're referring to. But I think it's important to remember that people with sight loss use these words as well. You know, I still watch the match. I still watch EastEnders. I may not do it with my eyes, but, you know, I'm still a viewer. It's, I think just if you start tying yourself up in knots using different language, it's just it's uncomfortable, isn't it, for everybody? That would be my thoughts on things. So, you know, we'll use the language that you know we would generally use. We have here from Kerry, it'd be helpful to know the ideas of questions to ask when we're supporting someone with employment. Yep, of course, absolutely. So I've got a few tips here, and I think it probably does partly answer that question that just came out, that comment. And it's, you know, some tips about, you know, if you are working with somebody or supporting somebody, a colleague or a job seeker, and you know, the types of the way that you might communicate in the most helpful way. So, you know, you could introduce yourself, you know, when you approach someone, say, hi, it's Heather. When you begin speaking to your colleague who has sight loss, if they need that, you know, again, it's important. I think Kim commented at the beginning of this section about it's best if people just ask you what you need. So not everybody will need you to say, hi, it's whoever. So ask your colleague, do you need me to do that? Generally, they'd be happy to answer you. It can be difficult for people to recognize others, like as we've seen about, you know, being able to see people's facial features, and it could be quite embarrassing if they don't actually know who they're talking to. So you have a conversation, somebody said this to me, but I haven't got a clue who it was. You know, so if you ask a colleague, could they do a task for you, they don't know who to report back to because they don't know who it was that asked. But, you know, ask the person, do they need to be introduced in that way? I think too, if you're walking around the workplace, you know, acknowledge your blind or partially sighted colleague when you're walking around, because they might not notice you. So, you know, rather than just walk past them because they can't see who you are, they still know that there's somebody there. So it's, you know, nice to acknowledge them at that point. And also, I think if you're having a conversation with somebody who's not able to see who's there, let them know if you're leaving, so they're not left sitting there talking to themselves and, you know, embarrassed speaking to somebody who's not there anymore. And, you know, I think the important thing to remember is it could be very different for, you know, different people. Some will need this, some won't. So the best thing to do is just to ask the person. We do have resources which we'll speak about a little bit later on, which go into much more detail about working with someone with sight loss. And we have courses in e-learning and things which would go into things more than what we would have time for today. So I think that the last question was about, the last comment was about knowing the types of things to say. So later on, we can point you in the direction of getting some more information about that, if that's okay. So I'm going to hand over to Andy again, because I think he's nodding off there. No, he's still awake. So
no, I'm just thinking there will be questions that we won't have enough time to answer today, because this is meant to be an overview and a awareness. But the materials that we'll point you to at the end of this will answer some more of your questions. And I'm aware of the time as well, so I'm going to try and speed up a wee bit here.
And it's okay. It's probably worth saying just quickly as well, we will be having some future sessions. You guys are coming back, aren't you? And we'll be looking at different areas in more detail. So this today, very much as you said, is an introduction, and then we'll look at future sessions to have more details. Thanks.
Thank you, Helen. Yeah, just briefly on written communication, so if you're looking for some very easy tips here, about what you might do differently. Well, at the end of the day, people are going to tell you what's best for them, but they often don't get the chance to tell you. So it's good practice generally to ask a new customer, how do you prefer your written communications to be? And we talk about formats. And we'll say bye to Kerry at this point, who has to leave. Thank you, Kerry. Yeah, if you ask the question, how would I send information to you? People will say, yeah, could I have large print, or could I have audio, or would you send me an email? And it could really also be Braille that we're talking about, but generally, just asking the question is the answer to this one. People will either use it electronically now or print it in a size that they need. So that's the easy tip for that one. Heather, do you want to talk about the next slide for us?
I will do. Yep. Okay, so in our next slide, we're going to be talking just briefly about getting around. So we have a short video here, which I think Helen's going to start up. And it's like getting around when to offer help.
My name is Dolly. I'm 63 years old and I'm registered blind, and my condition is retinitis pigmentosa. At the moment, I only see moving objects, light and dark, which is of course very helpful because at least I can still walk about by myself in an area that I know. I'm often being asked if I need help, and I'm always grateful for that. And if I need help, I'm not at all averse to accept help.
Oh, would you like some assistance?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, where would you like to go?
I would like to go to the advice centre, please. It's particularly helpful to be offered some help when trying to find an entrance to a building or a station or a shop or whatever. I do ask them if I can take their arm rather than them grabbing me and lifting me up because they're too worried that I might fall.
Right.
May I take your arm, please?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. If somebody grabs me and without asking me first, I feel a bit uncomfortable because I've been pinched a few times because I don't know why people think they must actually grab you.
If you see someone you think needs guiding assistance, ask if they would like any help. Ask how they would like to be helped. For more information about guiding, please visit rnib.org.uk/guiding.
RNIB, supporting blind and partially sighted people.
Okay. So, yeah, just to point out at this point, that video is quite old. It has our old branding on it, but there's lots of information if people need information on how to guide somebody. So to sum that one up, if you see someone who you think needs assistance, offer help, as the person in the film did. Introduce yourself, and you don't need to feel that you need to wait for somebody else to do it. If your offer is accepted, ask the person where they want to go and how they would like to be guided, and they'll tell you that. So most blind and partially sighted people develop strategies for navigating around at work. And they might use equipment or shelves or furniture to help them orientate around the workplace. So if someone has no or very limited useful vision, they might rely on some kind of a mobility aid, as we've talked about, that would generally involve navigating using a long cane. So the cane would tell this person through touch and sound what our eyesight would tell us. You arrive out our environment, and you can help a colleague to navigate independently by using a combination really of common sense and applying simple health and safety rules into the picture too. Just briefly to touch about guide dogs, in most cases, working practices can be adopted to make sure that there's a safe and comfortable working environment to include a guide dog. And guide dogs are highly trained, and they'll sit near or under the owner's desks. They're trained not to interact with or disturb other people in the work environment. And Guide Dogs UK will be happy to talk to employers about any changes that need to be made to accommodate a guide dog. So I'm going to hand back over to Andy here, who has got another question, I think, for us here.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the slides to pop up now, but I was going to, I think it's now probably a good time to talk about technology and access to work. I know that it was raised in the chat just a few minutes ago. It can be quite difficult to kind of figure out what's going on when someone with sight loss explains that they're quite happy reading something off a computer screen, or even though you think surely that person wouldn't be able to read that. Yeah, people have become very competent using technology, but just in different ways. So on the one hand, people sometimes will change the way the screen it looks to either magnify or change colour schemes or make things look a bit easier to read. Oh, that is my question, Helen. Yeah, could I clip on past that one if that's okay to the next slide? Technology and access to work. Okay. And people with absolutely no sight are able to listen to things on the screen. So there's an awful lot of things that can be done with PCs. At the same time, people can be very competent using phones or Apple technology. Because the beauty of Apple technology is that it comes with all the adaptations that you need already built into it. But often that can be a barrier in the workplace. So things can be done, and we won't have enough time really to go into great depth now today, but it is worth saying, and thank you, Alistair, you've prompted me here, that funding is available for people who start jobs. The adaptations to devices in the workplace are often free from Access to Work, and Access to Work is for anyone that doesn't know, is a DWP program that funds changes in the workplace. So I think that there's a whole big world of technology there, and often people don't know the answer to it themselves. But RNIB can support with that and learning on what has to be done to make it all workable. So I think I don't want to go into greater depth on technology just now, but take away from this that most times there's a technology solution to how to read and how to communicate in the workplace. I think I'll pass on to Heather for the next slide now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think definitely the technology side of things could fill a whole other session perhaps in the future. So we have again a short film. It's a very, very short one. I know time's marching on, so if we could watch this just now, it's called See What We Can Do.
Only 1 in 4 blind or partially sighted people of working age are in employment. We are a valuable, underutilised resource in the UK workforce. See what we can do.
I'm Chris Fawcett. I am currently working as a regulatory compliance manager for a global education company.
I'm Laura, and I'm an occupational therapy assistant working in mental health.
My name is Nathan, and I'm a client advice officer.
My name is Dan, and I'm a graphic designer and 3D visualiser.
I'm the director of a corporate events company.
I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Lighthouse London.
I'm a Parliamentary and Public Affairs Manager.
I'm a gigging musician from London. I advise the Scottish Government on transport accessibility.
I'm Director of Services at a national charity.
I'm the UK's only visually impaired ice hockey player.
I have a rare form of macular degeneration, which means for me that I have lots of blind patches in my field of vision.
I was born with an eye condition called Leber's congenital amaurosis, and for me what that means is that I have no useful vision at all.
A bleed in my brain caused 90% vision loss.
I'm registered as severely sight impaired.
I have advanced glaucoma and I have tunnel vision.
I have albinism, which means my vision is very blurry and I can't see detail.
I find myself a lot on stages with a keyboard and a MacBook and a screen reader.
All I need is a large monitor and to invert the colour on my screen.
I use text-to-speech software to help me do my job.
I use screen magnification software.
I use speech software on the computer and the inbuilt screen reader in my phone.
I use a pair of glasses that have a bioptic telescope.
I use a monocular like this for seeing things at distance.
I've taught over 1,000 children to roller skate.
I built my first computer in 2004.
I used to work for the civil service in Whitehall as a ministerial private secretary.
I'm an administrator for the civil service.
I'm a press officer.
A community development officer.
I'm a locally elected councillor in the London Borough of Brent, where I'm also cabinet member for housing and welfare reform.
I'm Scott and I'm a camera operator. I have extremely low vision in my left eye and I'm short-sighted in my right. And I made this film. See what we can do.
Take our employment accessibility health check to find out how inclusive your workplace is. Visit rnib.org.uk. RNIB, see differently.
Thank you, Helen. And, you know, I really, really like that film. And I think it answers a question that I'm asked. You know, my job's an employment advisor, and I'm often asked what jobs blind people can do. And I think that shows a huge, you know, variety of the range of things people do. And, you know, blind and partially sighted people do perfectly well in a wide range of jobs across almost all employment sectors. And just like everybody else, it comes down to having the right support, training, skills and experience for that job. There's blind and partially sighted secretaries, car mechanics, nurses, scientists, stockbrokers, MPs, journalists, web designers and teachers. And just like anyone, it's about having the right tools to do the job. And in reality, there's very little that a blind or partially sighted person can't do. And with the increased use of technology, which Andy had mentioned in the workplace, it means that people with sight loss can do almost any job. So I hope that my video has given a good idea of that. So coming close to the end now, so I'm just going to hand over to Andy, who's going to talk a little bit about some of our other resources.
Only one.
Yeah, I think this is the point where if we haven't been, well, I'm competing with the video. If any of your questions haven't been answered, hopefully the answer will be here. The first point of call is the RNIB website. Has lots of really useful information for employment professionals. So that is a web address to look for there, or just go to the RNIB homepage and search around for employment professionals. Some things that are particularly useful on there is that we have a pre-employment program. So that is any work that you want to do with individuals about CVs, application forms, interviews. The materials are there in accessible format, so they're free to use. We also have an employment assessment toolkit, which is a tool that you can use to try and work out where somebody is and what they need next in their journey towards a job. And we also have some information about our e-learning, which is available free to all employment professionals. Mm-hmm. And so I'd encourage you to go in there and have a look, because probably the answers to most of your questions will be in there. And if not, it will tell you how to get in touch with us to ask us more. I'll hand back over to Ella now.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you. We hope that by joining us in our webinar today, that you feel more confident and that you've gained knowledge to help you work with customers and colleagues with sight loss. And as Andy said, if you'd like any further help from us, please contact the RNIB helpline. Thank you, Sylvia. I've really enjoyed it very much as well. And thank you, everybody, for being so involved. I think that makes things, yeah, it's certainly much nicer. And we're getting some good comments here. So.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, it has been really, really enjoyable. So thank you very much for that. Sylvia, Christine, sorry, I can see your hands up and I'll come to you in a moment. But if anyone else has any questions, please do go ahead and put them in the chat or raise your hands. We've got a couple of minutes left. So, Christine, sorry, I've asked you to unmute.
Hi, yes, thank you. Sorry, very quickly, you mentioned one of the impacts might be light sensitivity. I wondered if that is in relation to all conditions or just some, because that's not something that I had realised.
Okay. I'll start to answer this. Yeah. So I think there are a number of eye conditions and other conditions too that can cause light sensitivity. The lady in the last video there who said she has albinism, people with albinism often have difficulties with light. Cataracts, as we saw in the pictures, can disperse light, and and I think that the important thing to remember is with light, the answer can often be about if you can control the light. So that could be to do with adjusting the screen, because, a computer screen is just a huge big square torch, isn't it? So with lots of light and you're close up and it's in your face. So, if the computer screen's adjusted, and so you're slightly using the computer a little bit differently, that can massively help. Overhead lighting, where that is in relation to you, things like, if the light's hitting off your screen and you're getting glare coming back. Some people are more comfortable with natural daylight from the window, whereas some are more comfortable with artificial lighting. So I think lighting is a very individual thing. And I think my advice is that the person who has the issue around the light, they're probably the best one to advise their employer on their desk position and things like that. So, if I was advising someone around light sensitivity in work, I would be looking at desk position, where the windows are, how much light's coming from the screen, all these types of things. But I think to answer your question, there's lots of conditions that could cause somebody to have difficulties with light.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
for that
Heather.
question. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We've had lots of comments from everyone saying how much they've enjoyed the session, yeah, it's been great. So thank you for that. I'm aware we've got like a minute to go. So thank you so much. As I've said, I promise everyone, we will be bringing the team from RNIB back to do some more sessions around employability and that focus for us over the coming weeks and months. So please keep an eye out for that. And if you have any requests, if there's any areas of interest that you think it would be really useful, let me know at inquiries at iemployability.org, and I will make sure that we feed that back to the team when they're putting those sessions together for us. So thank you both, Andy and Heather, very, very much. I've really enjoyed today's session and working with you, and I look forward to doing that again. Just wanted to let the people on the call know about something that's taking place tomorrow. There is a webinar taking place tomorrow in partnership with the Learning and Work Institute, the IEP, DWP and Adecco Working Ventures, and it's about getting back to work and how the Restart programme will be working. So it's at 12 o'clock tomorrow. If any of you would like to attend, you should have received a notification from the IEP in your mailbox today, so have a look for that. If you haven't and you'd like to attend, again, drop me an email and I will make sure I get the link to register for that webinar out to you. And you can get me on inquiries at iemployability.org, said properly this time, if you want any more information on that. So once again, thank you to everyone, those who have attended and those who have presented for us today, and I look forward to seeing you all on future events. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you, everyone.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.